What's up, everybody? I'm a girl with a horse tattoo, and today is another episode of Life After Travel. Today, we are going to be talking about just the ups and downs of traveling abroad and how it has impacted us for the greater and some things that we have learned along the way. Today, I am so excited. I have a special guest. I met him in Bangkok, Thailand. Josh is here. Everybody, give him a warm welcome. I am so excited that you are here joining me for LAT today. Let's just get right into it. What defines home for you?
For me, it's mainly like people. And what I've noticed is like a lot of people, they think like home is like where you were born and where you grew up. And you can grow up somewhere and not feel connected to it at all. And so like for me, for example, I was born in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, but I left when I was 4 and I grew up in Houston where I stayed until I was 18. So I consider both places home because, Houston, I grew up, I have a lot of friends here. Louisiana, that's where all of my family is, that's where culture is. Even though we're in Houston, it's a very much a Louisiana household. So,
Okay.
home is like where that culture is for you, where the family is, it's just like what you truly identify with. That's what it is for me.
Wow, thank you for that. And I did notice that on Instagram you started your little not your little, I need to stop saying little. You started your you started your decorations for Mardi Gras, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That
The whole
is
house is decorated for carnival season.
okay. So when I think of Mardi Gras, I think of like being on the streets in Louisiana and just free beats, free things getting thrown at me, lots of great music, loud chaos, like just a big celebration, but publicly. Could you explain to some of the viewers what's Mardi Gras for you, growing up with Creole in your blood? What does Mardi Gras mean to you?
Yeah, so Mardi Gras is a huge deal in Louisiana, period. I mean, like, there's a whole Mardi Gras break for it. That's just how it goes.
Oh, I didn't know
And,
that.
but it's basically a time to just, party, have fun, enjoy your, quality time with friends and family up until Lent, which is when you have to give something up for 40 days until Easter. So they all kind of tie in together. So, it's Mardi Gras, Lent, and then Easter, and then that's kind of like the end of like the whole like trifecta. Believe it or not, it's all centered around religion. So like the start of carnival season is January 6th, which is Three Kings Day, which it signifies the day that the 3 wise men visited Jesus and gave him gifts. And then, then Lent is like when Jesus went into the desert for 40 days. So that's why you give something up. And then Easter is the resurrection. So it all ties in together. But it's just a huge, like the entire state of Louisiana from January 6th up until Fat Tuesday. It's party mode. Parades all
Wow.
over the state. Now that it's COVID, it's not really gonna be like that this year, but usually that's how it is. And
Yeah.
not just Louisiana, and Louisiana is Mardi Gras, but then like carnival is all over the Caribbean, in Brazil, and all that people know about like celebrations in Rio. So
Yeah.
they're all connected.
Wow, I really have to like just publicly say that I kind of have been trivializing the holiday, just with like excuse to party and have a good time. But that I didn't really know that kind of insight into the holiday and how connected it was and how sacrificial it is. So that's actually really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Let's just transition a little bit to traveling. Your first time as a tourist. Can you recall your first time as a tourist?
Yeah, that was interesting. I was 7. That was my first international trip. It was Montego Bay, Jamaica. We went for my cousin's wedding. They had a destination wedding. And, I remember, everyone, for anyone watching who's been to Montego Bay, I mean, they know like you'll go to Ocho Rios and climb, the waterfalls or whatever. So, I remember doing that. I remember, staying on resorts and eating all this great food and stuff. But, as a 7-year-old, you can't really truly appreciate, being abroad, whether it's, the Caribbean or overseas. And so luckily I was able to go back to Jamaica a few years ago, and I was really able to truly appreciate it, as an adult, and just not as a child. But yeah, that was my first taste of something outside of the US.
Wow. And then just briefly tell us, when was your first time as an expat abroad?
That was Thailand. That was my first time living outside of the US, and that was an experience. I mean, I'll just say anyone, traveling abroad as a tourist, but then living abroad as a tourist, I mean, as an expat, two completely different things. Like, just
wow.
the experiences that you have, they're not similar at all.
If you could just give us some examples, what would be some concrete things that you can say, definitely this is how it is as a tourist, definitely this is how it is as an expat, and just kind of like show us the kind of contrast that you just mentioned.
As a tourist, like, so your time is limited, and hold on, I closed my dog out, and he's like scratching at the door to come in.
well, let's give him a warm welcome. Everybody, welcome the dog.
This is Reno.
Reno, welcome to Life After Travel. Is that a travel dog? Would he be considered a travel dog?
No, as far as he's gone is Louisiana.
One day you'll get your passport, Reno.
But yeah, I'll say like the difference, as a tourist, your time is limited, whether it's, a week or 2 weeks. So there's only so much that you can do in that time. And since your time is limited, you're trying to do all the cool stuff, all the touristy stuff. And then you'll save the other things for later. Whereas when you're an expat, you live there. Like, you ain't going nowhere anytime soon. So like, you have time to do the touristy stuff, which of course, a lot of it is. Exactly. Like you can like hit the brakes a little bit. So, one day you can go out and do the touristy stuff. Like, I know I had one day where I just went out and did like the temples that were all around the Grand Palace, which is what all the tourists do. But I didn't do that till a few months I was living there. So like, let's do something touristy. Also, like, since you just have that time to just relax, you can go out and do some things that the locals do. Go to like those local hole in the walls where nothing's in English, but the food is amazing. Go to a local bar, go to a local ceremony or festival, and since we worked out there, we got to experience a lot of those cultural events that, some tourists wouldn't get to experience.
Yeah.
And it gives you a whole different experience. It's a more intimate experience with the country. You feel like you know the country better. You feel like you know the people better because you were immersed in their culture and you had time to truly appreciate their culture.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a tourist is like this, like what can this country give me in this short amount of time? And then when you get to live there, your hands can kind of go outward, like what can I do to better be a person living in your place? Yeah, so it's definitely your perspective kind of shifts, and you care more and you empathize more when you have time to like ease into it. You take really amazing photos. Like, if I was mistaken, I would think you were an influencer. I would think you was a photographer. I would think you would have a business advocating something, but it just seems like you do it for the pleasure. What is your secret to taking a great photo? Please let us know, because we trying to get in on the no.
It's like, whenever like I decide to like take a photo, I have like just a vision of how I want something to look just in my head, and then I go out and I do it. And I'll say, like, once upon a time I did want to be like a professional photographer.
Okay, it's there.
It's always been something that's been drawn to me. And, my main purpose for Instagram when it first came out was for photography. So I follow a lot of photographers on Instagram, a lot of professional photographers, whether it's nature or people or whatever.
Oh, okay. So you also are exposed on your timeline to great photos, and you kind of like get inspired that way too. Okay.
And when I say I'm dedicated to getting a photo, like there's one
patience
on my page. I was at at HMCM City in Salut Prakan, and it was like in front of like this giant alligator.
Oh, the elephant. The elephant.
No, not the elephant. It was like
okay.
A temple thing, but like it wasn't a temple. It took me 40 minutes to get that picture. But it's like in my head, I'm like, this is how I want it to look. And every shot I took, it just didn't have that look. I was like, no, I'm not leaving here until I get the photo that I envisioned in my head. And then what made it difficult is, of course, like I was by myself. So I'm having to use the environment around me to set my phone and water bottle and backpack up in a way to get
Resourceful.
and capture everything that my friends call me extra. They know I'm extra. I mean, I've got stories of how I've gotten certain photos.
Wow. You know what? I noticed that like you put something on Instagram, you were like you used your water bottle or your backpack or something as a prop to set up your self timer to get that great photo. But also like I don't know, it just doesn't come across that you are doing a self timer. It comes across that this is a professional photo. And I think it's the passion and the patience and the vision. The passion, the patience, and the vision that creates that immaculate photo. Because a lot of times when I'm out with people and I ask them to take a photo of me, you know, I will go all out for their photo. But, you know, that's not always reciprocated. And sometimes their energy and their mood will take away my enthusiasm to get a great photo. So I noticed that you really have to be around like-minded people that appreciate the art of photography when you are trying to capture the moment.
Yeah. And I'll definitely say, like, anyone who like is solo traveling, don't be afraid of putting that phone there, putting that self timer on, and posing in front of it. I don't care who's in front of you.
Just now bring the Lysol, because if you set the phone down, you know, pick it up and wipe it off, and you know, keep going.
Don't need them corona germs. But that's the one thing, and that Asia taught me, and you've seen it. Those Asians love taking photos. They love selfies. They don't care who is by them. They will set that phone there, pose, and do whatever to get the photo that they want. And I
love that.
Helped me to get more comfortable doing that, because like when you're out there traveling, it's like, look, are you going to be back at this spot tomorrow? Are you going to be back here next week? This is your time to capture that moment, to capture that memory. And that's traveling. I love photos. Those are my memories. I could care less about the souvenirs. Give me a bomb photo. That's all I need from wherever I'm going.
Wow. So what is your favorite solo travel memory?
Now that one, that would be the elephant sanctuary in Chiang Mai.
I never got to go. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's funny how that worked out. Originally, I wasn't supposed to do it, but the kid that I worked with at my job, he ended up getting sick, and so he was out for like a while. So I ended up getting like a 4 or 5 day weekend just out of nowhere. Another in Thailand, you know, I was like, well, shoot, let me go do something. Bought me a cheap flight to Chiang Mai the next day, and went up there, and you know, just looking for stuff to do. And I was like, you know, that was one thing. I said, I'm not leaving Thailand until like I do an elephant sanctuary. And I did educate myself a lot on like at first I was into like the elephant riding, but then, you know, I've seen the info about that and how they're treated. And I was like, okay, I really don't want to contribute to that industry. Incredible sanctuaries to go visit. And so that was nice. It was about like a 6 or 8 hour excursion, which was like $40 US. And
amazing.
Like they fed us, they picked us up from wherever we were staying, and then we drove about 2 hours into the mountains. Like we were in the clouds. I was like, this is dope. We fed the elephants. We gave them like a little shower and like kind of like brushed them. Then got in the mud with them because they use the mud to protect themselves from the sun. And then after the mud bath, we got in the river and like, you know, washed the mud off and, you know, bathed in some.
Wow.
I'm in a natural river with some elephants. And it's like, and it was like at the same time, I'm like, okay, safety. I'm looking at the elephant's feet. I'm like, okay, just don't step on my foot. Because they were, you know, stepping, flipping, and flopping off the place. I'm like, all right.
It's like Jungle Book out there in the street.
Yes. I get washed to death while bathing the elephant in Thailand. I mean, what a way to go out. But
I know.
I don't want to die.
Here lies the boy who got crushed by the great big elephant in Chiang Mai.
But it was totally an experience. And one of the things that I remember, the Thai people that were with us, of course the elephants, they were just pooping whenever. You know, an elephant poops.
Yeah.
He would pick it up and he's like throwing it at us. Can you not throw that giant ball of dung at me? But they were just having a ball. I'm like, man. But it was great. I met, plenty of other foreigners. It was Americans, Spaniards, Dutch, and you just connect because you're there for all that time, and that's all you can do. So it was nice to get out there and connect with people.
Don't you notice that everyone, when they're doing something really cool and interesting and new, they're so open and childlike and just friendly, and you really just get to see them in their best light, their best aura. I love that. When you are traveling, I know you are a foodie, so we're going to talk about food. You post really great pictures of food all the time. So how essential is that to having a great travel trip? Like, what is your connection to great food when you travel?
Food is number one on the list. I mean,
that's that Creole coming out.
Food is how you connect with where you are, and I've realized that more as an adult and as I've gotten, closer with my own culture. It's like you don't realize how much culture is put into food. And how much, the ingredients that were used were influenced by this historical event in time, or, this significant holiday here, and it all came together to create this cultural dish. For me, wherever I am, that's what I spend all my money on. My money all goes to food, and I want to know, what do y'all eat at family? I mean, like your family gathering. If y'all had a Thanksgiving, what would be on the table?
Right.
And just for me, like, food is how I connect with the culture. That's how I connect with the country. And I do try to, try some bizarre things I probably wouldn't do again. But it's like, okay, I gave it a try. I really got immersed in the culture, but I don't think I want to eat that again.
Right. Food is really an opportunity. A lot of people have their guards down when they're eating. They are very, back to that very openness. Just they have the time and the space to connect with you, and food is a great way to meet new people and to find out more about someone. So a lot of times when I was eating in Thailand, I would try to eat with a new teacher. I would try to listen to them talk in Thai. I would try, to say, speak broken English with them. Because any other time, they're going to be self-conscious about, their English. They're going to be hesitant to approach you because they're reserved and shy. And just food is just an opportunity.
Totally agree.
What has it been like for you traveling as a Black man? Have you noticed a difference? Do you feel like you're just a foreigner, or has there been a distinction traveling as a Black man?
At least for my experience, it's definitely been a spectrum. Like, I've come across people who dislike Black people, then I've come across people who only dislike Black Africans, but they don't have a problem with Black people from anywhere else in the world. Then you have some people that are just, kind of in the middle, and then some people who love Black people so much to where it's a fetish and it's kind of creepy. So I've experienced a little bit of both. And one thing that, living abroad has taught me is, even though a lot of how we are treated is sometimes about race, it's not always about race. And I had to learn to not quickly get offended about everything, because sometimes it was just how, that culture, that's just how that's how they behave with everyone. But it's like, I've never been treated like that. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, they did it because I'm Black. They don't like me, or this or whatever. And so, like, a prime example that, like, I encountered a lot in Thailand is when I would, speak just basic Thai whenever I would go to the store or something, and the Thai people would laugh. And it discouraged me from, like, speaking Thai. I'm like, I know I'm saying this right. I know I'm pronouncing it right. Why are they laughing? So then when I would go back to work, I would, go to my Thai coworkers. I'm like, hey, why do Thai people laugh every time I speak Thai? Like, I'm saying, this is what I want to say, and this is what I'm saying. And they're like, oh yeah, you say it good. You have the accent or whatever. They're like, but they've just never, they don't see many foreigners speaking Thai, and they definitely don't see Black foreigners speaking Thai. And they explain to me, they're like, when Thai people just see something new and out of the ordinary, their response is laugh. That's how they cope with that. I was like, okay. So, having someone in the culture explain that to me, it kind of helped me get that mindset. Okay, not everything's about race. Not everyone is racist towards you. But a funny experience I had, back when I was at that place where it took me 40 minutes to take the photo, when I was finally leaving, there was a tour bus of a bunch of Chinese tourists who were coming to see the structure. And one of the little kids, like these little Chinese boys, like running up. So the thing was like over the water. So you have to like walk on these bridges and stuff. And so he's running up the bridge. And I guess he didn't see me at first. And then as soon as he like got closer and he saw me, he like screamed in horror and like turned around and ran back to like the group. And like one of the older Chinese men, he just sees me and he's just like I'm so, oh my God, a black man. I don't know if he was afraid because I was just tall and a stranger, or was it because he's like, I didn't get offended by it. I learned to just laugh at a lot of it because it's like, at the end of the day, I'm still having a good time.
I definitely get that more so with Chinese people. I was in China for a day trying to get to California from Thailand. And I met this amazing, beautiful Chinese lady who took me around, around the airport and to the markets and stuff. And she would not let me buy any of my food. She paid for all my food. She paid for my bus fare. And she said, I want to show you China with your layover, And she spoke really good English because her husband was living in New Zealand and he was Chinese, but he had to speak a lot of English in New Zealand. So he taught her Chinese and he taught her English. And so she really just wanted to represent China in the best possible way. But being in China for that layover, people did stare and people were confused and people were like looking at me like I was an extraterrestrial being or an alien or something. You get that and you have to just be empowered because you were there first, You have to be empowered. How has your worldview shifted from traveling abroad?
I'm definitely more open-minded. And I'll say my very first experience with that was when I was 11. We went to Nigeria for 3 weeks. My now former stepdad, but he's Nigerian. And so his sister was getting married and wanted us in the wedding. So we went there. And so, in America, we're fed this image of other countries, especially African countries. I went there expecting it to look how we were taught it was going to look, huts and dirt roads and just poor. Specifically, we were in Lagos, Nigeria. And it was just like, okay, no, it's not as, metropolitan as Houston or whatever, but it wasn't piss poor like we've been taught in school our entire lives. Like it was a spectrum, just like it is in the States. You had people who were living in poverty, but then you had people who were filthy rich. And like my stepdad's cousin, we ended up going to one of the islands, Victoria Island, right off the coast of Nigeria. And he had this huge mansion. We were met by staff. They took our bags. They cooked for us on arrival. And I was just like, this is Africa? I didn't know this stuff was even possible in Africa. I thought everybody was poor. That was my first experience with it. But, just overall, you start to realize that the world and other countries are not what your home country make it out to be. And I saw that was the same for people in Asia. They have their view of America and Americans. And when they do come across some of us and we start telling them how we grew up and how we lived, and they're just like, what? I thought America was this. I thought everybody in America was that. And that's how my view has changed. So it's just a lot more open-minded.
Wow.
So quick to just believe everything that I see on the media or believe everything that people just tell me.
Would you consider traveling a luxury?
Personally, I don't, but I feel like a lot of people make it out to be a luxury. And I'm a huge supporter of traveling. I try to get my family, my friends to get your passport and get out of America, see the world. But a lot of people just think, it's too expensive. I don't have the money. I have to take time and save up for it. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be expensive. Usually the most expensive part of traveling is your plane ticket. Once you've got that covered, wherever you end up, you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Now you can choose to do that. Like you have some people who only eat at, the most expensive restaurants or only do the most expensive excursions or whatever. It doesn't have to be that way. So I will say, traveling is not a luxury, but it is a privilege. Not everyone is privileged enough to travel, but many of those who are privileged to travel are just afraid to because, they think it's expensive, but it's really not that expensive. Just get out there, make that first step, and you'll realize it's like, oh man, okay, let's do this again.
I'm the same way. I'm just like, you can't take anything with you when you hit the grave. So it's like, You want to have experiences, that were worth the while, worth the life, worth the energy. Have you been traveling since the global pandemic? And if you have, has it been locally, and how has that sustained you?
I have traveled once. Well, I guess I won't say like once, but I did fly over the summer. So I did fly from Missouri to Texas to see my mom and siblings here, and then I flew to Georgia to see my dad and stepmom and siblings there, and then back to Missouri. So it wasn't really like vacation. It was just get away, see some family, go back. And I will say the pandemic has put a halt on how frequent I would travel, because usually the summer I do try to travel a lot. During winter break right now, I plan on being back in Asia again. But, see how that worked out. But I will say the good thing about the pandemic is I have saved a lot of money because we haven't been able to do as much, haven't been able to travel, haven't really been able to go out and stuff like that. And I've been privileged enough to still have a job where I'm still getting paid well. So I've been able to save so much, despite, not being able to do as much as we could.
How do you feel about Americans traveling right now abroad with the global pandemic?
I'll say this because it doesn't seem like, the pandemic's going to fade away anytime soon, especially with some people still being defined and not wanting to follow just simple guidelines. So I'll say, like, if people are going to decide to travel abroad, do it responsibly. If you are feeling symptoms, just don't travel, postpone it. And then when you do get somewhere, try to refrain from being in those large crowds or going to those crowded clubs. You can still have a good time, go with your close circle, but stay safe. Wear your mask, just put the cloth on your face. Like it's not going to put a damper on your vacation. So it's still possible to do it. And I think a lot of people they're scared to travel because they're afraid of getting COVID on the plane. I've been looking at the research, and it's just, you're not that likely to get it on a plane, which, as much as they filter the air in and out, your chances of getting on a plane are very low. With that being said, it's like, just don't be irresponsible and travel when you're feeling symptoms.
It's so COVID safe on the plane. I've been on the plane several times traveling locally, and they wipe those planes down. Like I was one of the last persons to get off this last plane coming back from Texas to California. And like, there was like a crew of like 7 people for one plane, just wiping down the seats and just, Lysol wipes and spraying. They fumigate it. They have this tank and they fumigate it and spray this thing all over everywhere. And then it's filtered air. There's no food or beverage service served during the plane. People keep their mask on the entire flight. If not, you can't ride the plane. So it's been pretty safe there. And then when you actually do arrive in the country, do things that are outdoors in nature where, the air is being, fresh and circulated, and, you're not exposing someone.
Yeah. And I think that'll affect people. That'll affect how people approach traveling to different places now. Because I think a lot of people, they're really into like, oh, okay, what club can we go to? What bar can we go to? And like, the COVID is forcing you to turn away from those things and do things that are a little bit more intimate of the area, and that will help you, be better connected with the area that you're going to.
Yes. And last question, do you have any abroad plans for the future?
I definitely do. I'm in the last semester of my graduate program. So I graduate in May, and I'm currently planning on moving back to Bangkok. If everything works out as planned, I will be back in Bangkok before the end of the year. So I've been putting in that work, but I'm doing a lot behind the scenes. I don't share a lot on social media in terms of like the work that I'm doing, but there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes.
Wow, congratulations. Congratulations on, your schooling, and then also your exciting journey to go back to Bangkok. Oh my gosh, I will definitely be watching you from afar. I really do want to go back to Bangkok. I'm really hoping one of my friends get married, and I have a good reason. Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for joining, Josh. It has been an incredible interview. This has been Life After Travel. Please follow him on his Instagram, everyone. It is amazing. You will be inspired by the beautiful pictures. And also subscribe, comment, and follow me. If you find my series interesting, that would be incredible. It's free, $99. Support Black people.
You beat that.
Okay, bye, Josh. See you on Instagram.